Hey guys, today we are going to be looking at VRoid and how we can integrate one of their characters into our Massive Loop platform. So to get things started, I'm going to open up my Steam app. Under my Library tab, I will find VRoid Studio. Let's launch it. Once VRoid loads, we should see a collection of thumbnails, each one depicting a character that has been created. If this is your first time using VRoid, I highly recommend that you jump into their app and start creating a character of your own. VRoid comes with lots of features, which makes character creating easy and fun, all while maintaining the same artistic style throughout. Now, I've already took the time to create my own VRoid character. So let's start off by clicking on his thumbnail. The VRoid file will now start to load, and our character Jay will open up into edit mode. This will allow us to make further changes to our VRoid character if we wish to. Since I am quite happy with Jay's current settings, I will skip the editing process and go straight to export. In the upper right corner of the app, we will see what looks to be a share icon. Let's click it. Some options will appear. Let's select Export as VRM, and VRoid will begin to analyze our character and give us the opportunity to make some optimizations to our character before the actual export takes place. If we look at the export info, we can see our character's geometry consists of about 36,000 polygons. His materials are at 18 and his bones are 133. The option that stands out to me is the 18 materials. Let's expand the Reduce Materials tab. Where we see Default, let's hit the drop-down arrow. Here we have a few options, 2, 8, and 12. I'm going to select 2. Once I do this, now VRoid will go ahead and process the data and create a 4K texture atlas for us. Let's hit Export. Next, the VRM setting window will open up. As far as which export format to choose, I'm going to keep it at VRM 0.0. Now under Title, let's type in J. And under Creator, we will type in me. Now go ahead and scroll down until you see the Export button appear. Once you do, hit Export. The export process will begin, and an Explorer window will appear, and we can go ahead and browse to the location we would like to export our VRM file to. Great, now that that's done, we are all set to bring our character into Unity. Here, I got my Unity opened. I am currently using version 2020.3.351. The first things we will need to do is enable Unity the ability to read our VRM file. To do this, we'll need to open our browser and find the VRM Unity package from GitHub. I'm going to go ahead and copy paste the address in. However, I will be providing a link in the description below to help make it easy for you to find it. Once there, let's look for UniVRM-0.53.06B07. Once you find it, download it. In Explorer, let's open the download folder and find our UniVRM Unity package. Once found, we can drag and drop our package into the asset folder of our Unity project. Unity will begin the import process and show us a list of all the files associated with this package. Go ahead and click Import. Once import is finished, we will see VRM appear at the top of the Unity toolbar. This should indicate to us that the import was a success. Next, we are going to want to create a place to store our character files. So let's right-click on the asset folder. Let's select Create and Folder. A new folder should appear. And to keep things organized, let's just give it the same name as our VRM file. Let's open up the folder. Nice. Now in Explorer, let's browse to our VRM file and drag and drop it into our new folder. We should see our VRM file come in, and we should also see a prefab of it get created. Let's drag and drop our prefab up into the scene. Under the transform node, click on the more options icon. And we're just going to select reset, and this should zero out all the transform values of our characters. Once done, our model is ready to go through the Massive Loop process. When getting a character ready for the Massive Loop SDK process, the first thing we want to make sure of is that we have the Massive Loop SDK installed. Let's open our browser. Let's go to www.massiveloop.com. We'll need to sign into our account. Once done, at the top of the page, you should see an option for download. Click it. We should then see an option for Massive Loop SDK. Once selected, a new page will open up and we will see an option to download the Massive Loop SDK. Let's go ahead and download it. Once the download is complete, drag and drop the SDK package into your Unity Assets folder. A window will open up showing you the contents of the package. Go ahead and hit Import. Once done, Massive Loop will appear in the Unity toolbar. This means we have successfully loaded the Massive Loop SDK. In the scene, let's go ahead and click on J. In the inspector, let's scroll down until we find Add Component. Here, we can find the avatar descriptor. Let's add it to our prefab. Once applied, we can expand our character's hierarchy and see that some new game objects have been added. We can also look in our scene view and see some spheres, which we will call anchors, have been added to the scene as well. Let's start by going to our character's hierarchy and selecting the eye game object. Now in our scene view, let's roughly position the eye anchor around the area of our character's eyes. We will also want to move the anchor a bit in front of the nose, keeping it in front of any geometry. This is going to be the position of our camera. Next, let's select the left-hand anchor. This will represent our controllers, so we'll need to position the anchor close to the area where the thumb meets the hand. We will also need to rotate the Y channel -90 and the Z channel -90. The anchor's Z positive axis should now point down the hand, and the Y positive axis should now point in the direction that our character is facing. Great, let's go ahead and copy these values. In the upper right corner of our transform component, let's click on the More option icon. Let's select Copy Component. Now, back in the Hierarchy tab, let's select our left laser star anchor. Under its transform components, let's click on the More option icon. Now we're going to select Paste Component Values. This will change the values of the left laser star to match the values of the left-hand anchor. Now to finish up, let's position the left laser star anchor to be more at the tip of the index finger. The last anchor we will look at is the seat anchor. This anchor depicts the point where your avatar will be seated when using stations in Massive Loop. So let's select the seat anchor and position it around the pelvis and possibly somewhere close to the upper thighs. Great. Now, the last thing we're going to need to adjust is our character's bounding box. An easy way to do this is by turning our camera into isometric mode and also switching it to front view. With our character selected, we can now see and adjust our bounding box accurately to the floor and to our character's height. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and go to the inspector. Under the playable layers, we can see there are 2 slots open for controllers. If we hover over the base layer text, we'll see a quick tip appear. This slot will hold the ML default locomotion controller. Let's select the circle and find the ML default locomotion controller and select it. We can now see it appear in the slot. Let's go ahead and do the same for the second layer. It looks like this slot is for hand animations. Go ahead and select the circle and pick the ML default hand controller. It should appear in the slot as well. Now let's go ahead and move on to our blink properties. Under blink mechanics, let's hit the drop-down arrow. Now Massive Loop wants to know how will our character's blink be controlled. Let's select blend shape. For the skin mesh renderer, we need to have the mesh that holds the blend shapes. So let's select our character's face mesh and drag it onto that slot. Next, let's look at the blink blend shape property and select the drop-down arrow. Let's scroll down until we find FCL eye closed. Go ahead and select it. We will keep its default values and move on down to eye fixation. Under fixation properties, we will find fixation mechanic. Let's hit the drop-down arrow. We can see different options on how to control the eyes. Our avatar eyes are driven by joints, so we will need to select a bone transform. We should see some empty slots saying left eye and right eye. This is where our joints will go. So under our avatar's hierarchy, let's expand it until we locate the eye joints. Once we find them, we can drag the left eye and right eye joint into the respective slots. We are now ready to set their eye look limits. In the max look right property, let's click on modify. We need to figure out which axis rotates the eyes to look right. Now in our case, that seems to be the Y channel. Let's put in a value of about 12. That looks pretty good. Let's uncheck the modify button and move on to max look left. Click on the modify. Here we can apply the opposite value of the right eye. So in the Y channel, let's put in a value of -12. Go ahead and uncheck modify. For max look up, click on modify, and in the X channel, let's add a value of about -8. Okay, that looks good. Uncheck modify, and for max look down, check modify. In the X channel, a value of 12. Uncheck modify. That's perfect. We are now finished with our fixation values. So let's go ahead and move on to our visemes. In the mouth properties section under mouth simulation mechanics, let's hit the drop-down arrow and choose viseme blend shapes. Much like the blink, we will need to select the mesh that has the blend shapes on them. So let's go ahead and select our character's face mesh and drag it into the viseme skin mesh slot. Once done, let's hit the detect button. The Massive Loop SDK will try and detect the visemes for us. If it does not, don't worry. We can easily hit the drop-down arrow and select the blend shapes that correspond to that particular slot. Once we have all our visemes hooked up, we can hit check performance. Massive Loop SDK will check our avatar, and if everything is green, we can move forward. Okay, so before we leave the inspector, we have one more thing to check. If we scroll up to the top, we will see a property that reads overrides. Let's hit the drop-down arrow. Here, we can see all the changes we have made to our character's prefab. To apply these changes, we will need to scroll to the bottom and hit the Apply All. Once applied, we can move on to fixing our character's material. So currently, if we were to go ahead and upload our character into Massive Loop, we would only be able to see him with one eye when looking through our VR glasses. Now, this has to do with our character's current shader not supporting single pass instancing. To fix this, we will need to upload another Unity package called VRoid Shader Fix. You'll be able to find this package in the description below. Once you've downloaded it, drag and drop it into your project's assets folder. Now, once it processes, hit import. Once done, it will find your character's current material and fix them for you. Let's go ahead and save our file. At this point, we are now ready to upload this avatar. Now, before an avatar can be uploaded into the Massive Loop Metaverse, a unique profile or container for that avatar must be created. To do this, we will need to open our browser and go to www.massiveloop.com. Here we can sign into our account. Once signed in, navigate to the button that says Massive Loop. If we hit the drop-down arrow, we should see a selection for avatars. Click on it. This should open up a page that displays all the currently uploaded avatars. On the left, you should see an option labeled My Avatars. If we click on it, the page will show all the avatars we have uploaded through our account. Now, this makes it extremely easy to find and edit our avatar's profile. If we look to the top right, we will see a button that says Create Avatar. Let's go hit that. We can now fill out some general information about our avatar, like our avatar's name. Now, for consistency, we will call ours J. Under category, we'll make human. And under description, we can write anything we feel that will accurately describe our avatar. Once finished, let's click Create. The profile is created and we can now add a thumbnail to our avatar's profile. Now, I have already grabbed the PNG that came with our VRM file, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Browse. I'll find the file, select it, and hit Open. Now, if we hit the Update button, we should see our thumbnail appear. Let's go ahead and jump back into Unity. In the Unity toolbar, let's navigate to Massive Loop. Here, we'll find the Control Panel. Let's go ahead and click it. We'll be prompted to log into our Massive Loop account. Once logged in, let's select the avatar icon. If we look at the top, we can see which avatar is current. Since this is not the profile we are loading to, we will need to change it. So let's hit Change. We will get a warning. Go ahead and hit Yes. We now need to tell the SDK which avatar prefab we would like to associate to this profile. Go ahead and click on Select Avatar Prefab. Find the J prefab and select it. We can now hit the Build and Upload button. The SDK will begin uploading our avatar to the Massive Loop Metaverse. Let's go ahead and publish that profile. To do this, we'll need to open up our browser and navigate back to massiveloop.com. Let's sign in. Once finished, we will select Massive Loop and Avatars. Next, let's hit My Avatars. This should pull up the avatar profile we've created under our account. Let's select the J profile. And just under the thumbnail, we should see a pencil icon. Let's select it. Once opened, let's click on Publishing. Here, we'll be able to select the status of our avatar. Under the New Status, let's click on the drop-down arrow. A few options to choose from. I'm going to go ahead and set the J avatar to private so that only I can select him in the Massive Loop Metaverse. Once done, let's hit Update. We should now be able to go to Massive Loop and choose our avatar. Okay, once in, we can go ahead and go to our avatar section. We can click on our avatar and I see my avatar equips to me. And it looks like our avatar is working just fine. So I want to go ahead and thank you guys for spending the time to go through the VRoid to Massive Loop character pipeline with me. I look forward to